Author of Gain Without Pain, the Happiness Handbook for Healthcare Professionals, also the tool chest that you can't live without, to conquer the walls of internal and of external struggle for that matter. Okay, so in a moment we're going to explore further with Dr. Gregory Hammer, professor at Stanford University School of Medicine and Pediatrics. But I just wanted to tell you this, that October has been a great month as we're doing 10 live shows a week with amazing hosts and topics and plans of expansion in the months ahead. Now, Bloomer Boomer is a really diverse platform that can launch you into a full and meaningful life after 55. Boomer TV is live streamed on most social media platforms several days a week, and it's available to watch on bloomerboomer.com. Like and follow us on your favorite social media to hear more about what's coming up. All right, so let's go and talk to Dr. Gregory Hammer and his book Gain Without Pain. Dr. Hammer, great seeing you here today.
Great being with you again, Andy.
Yeah, well, look at there's so many facets to your book, and it can be used in so many different situations. But I don't think it ever hurts to remind viewers about your book and the meaning of the meaning of the acronym GAIN.
Sure. GAIN is an acronym that stands for the four principal elements of resilience and happiness, and they are gratitude, acceptance, intention, and non-judgment. So I think those are really fundamental to many, many different types of philosophy and religions.
Pretty self-explanatory in many ways.
Yes. I think things that are elegant in their simplicity are self-explanatory and unfortunately sometimes overlooked.
You're right. Sometimes, yeah, like you say, sometimes the simplest answer is the best one. Now, okay, so when we left last week, we were talking about an exercise that you were going to share with us. It sounds really interesting, and this, I think, it may be the first of this season that you've done this, but I'm excited to find out.
Sure. Well, we talked about the elements of gain over the last several weeks. We talked about happiness. We talked about forgiveness and compassion. We talked about gratitude. We talked about acceptance, intention, and non-judgment. And I thought today we would wrap it up and talk about the GAIN meditation, I think, which is the perfect way to start one's day. And this will help set us on a path of practicing mindfulness and being present, kind, generous, accepting, and really in touch with ourselves. So we can just launch into it if you'd like. I think that meditation, Andy, is very much misunderstood. A lot of people hear that term and they kind of cringe a little bit because maybe it's something they've tried, maybe it's something they have thought about trying and they haven't gotten around to it. As I said, maybe they've tried and they think that they've failed. And I think one reason that commonly happens is that people are instructed to take what I would consider to be too large a bite. For example, one may believe that meditation is something that requires a half an hour of sitting quietly, not moving, perhaps being uncomfortable, perhaps trying not to scratch an itch. Most importantly, not having any thoughts in their head, but just either pronouncing a mantra or whatever other technique of meditation is under consideration. And that's not realistic for a lot of people. First of all, there's no reason that one has to sit perfectly still, certainly not in an uncomfortable position. There's no rules. So sit in a comfortable chair, sit on a pillow on the floor if you prefer. I would caution against lying down because I think many people might fall asleep, but there are certainly those that do meditate lying down. I have a room for meditation and it's got two comfortable seats that are close to the ground. And then I have a yoga mat, and I like sitting in a kneeling position, sitting on my heels with my back straight. But there are no rules. That's the point. The point is find a comfortable spot and set your expectations. The reason that I started the GAIN meditation that I teach to my trainees is that they often, when I ask them what makes you feel well, what activities do you really enjoy most that move you in the direction of wellness? And they'll tell me things like going to a yoga class, going out for a run, going for a long bike ride, but they don't have time to do those things. It takes 20 minutes or 25 minutes to drive to the yoga class, and then the class is an hour, and then there's the drive back, and then they have to take a shower. They just don't have time to do that. So I thought, there's no reason that we have to carve out an hour or an hour and a half. Why don't we make the meditation very simple, and we can do it in as little as 3 minutes. So what I counsel my trainees is set your intention the night before, set your alarm for 3 minutes earlier than you might otherwise be getting up. My trainees usually get up pretty early in the morning because we start work early. So let's say they were going to get up at 5:45 in the morning. Set the alarm for 5:42. So this will help establish one's intention for doing the 3-minute GAIN meditation the following morning. And as we've talked about, set your intention also on 3 good things at night before you go to bed. Think of 3 good things that happen during the day, and that will help you sleep and move you in the direction of happiness. So in the morning, wake up, open the blinds. There may be darkness at that hour, especially as we head into winter, but if there's light, great. Do one's morning hygiene routine, and then find a comfortable, quiet place to sit. So I'm fortunate that I have a small room for meditation, but this can be in an office, it can be in a living room, it can be in the bedroom. And as I said, it can be on the floor, it can be sitting in a chair, whatever is really comfortable. And then be seated or assume a comfortable position. And we start with the breath. There are certainly many different techniques for meditation. Some, for example, are based on repeating a sound or a mantra over and over and over again. That tends to help one slow down the body's physiology and to be present and to bring yourself away from thoughts of the past and the future, which are very distracting. So it can be pronouncing a mantra. There are chants. There's meditation that's based on movement. But in this meditation, what we're going to do is we're going to do a contemplative session. That means that we're actually going to focus our thoughts. And a lot of people have trouble trying hard not to think of anything, not to have any thoughts in their head. And meditation doesn't have to be that, but rather it can be a contemplation. So we're going to find a comfortable place. We're going to get in touch with our breath. And one way to do that is to slow down our breathing. And for example, inhale to a count of 3, pause to a count of 2, and then let the breath go slowly and without effort to a count of 4. So in slowly to a count of 3, pause for a count of 2, and exhale to a slow count of 4. And we do this a few times, and we can imagine that not only our rate of breathing, but our heart rate is slowing down. The adrenaline in our body is going down. The concentration of cortisol in our blood is going down. We're settling into a nice, relaxed session. And then we're going to contemplate, initially the G in GAIN is for gratitude. We're going to contemplate that for which we're grateful. And certainly there are many, many things for which to be grateful, as we've discussed. After that, we're going to transition into acceptance. And as we've discussed, Andy, life is full of pain and suffering, both kind of on a global level, especially during the pandemic, and also on a very personal level. Many of us have lost loved ones. We've lost friendships. We have physical afflictions. There are lots of elements in our lives that are painful and cause suffering. And what we're going to do is bring that sensation of pain and suffering closer and closer, and imagine our heart opening and bringing that pain in so close that we merge with it. And when we ask ourselves the question, can I live with this pain forever? The answer is yes. Then we're going to transition to our intention. we talked about how if we're purposeful, we can actually rewire our brains from our very negative way of viewing the world, in many cases, this negativity bias that we have, and also away from maladaptive thoughts of the past and the future, bring our thought processes to the present moment where happiness dwells. And then we're going to go to the end and gain finally, which is for non-judgment. And as we've discussed, our minds are always comparing others to others, others to ourselves, making judgments of good or bad, and most of all, judging ourselves very harshly. And we don't have to label things as good or bad, or too much of one thing or not enough of another. Rather, we can just see the world exactly as it is, knowing that we didn't cause it to be the way it is, and we're not going to change it substantially. And so let's just observe what is without judgment. And then we're going to return to our breath before we slowly open our eyes. And in this process, we're going to be really bringing our thought processes right into the present moment. And we're going to pick intentions for the day. So we're going to decide today I'm going to be non-judgmental. So the first person I see, I'm going to drop any judgment of that person. A common example is you're driving your car on your way to work, if you're going to work, and somebody changes lanes ahead of you without using their turn signal, and we immediately start making judgments about that person. And when we find that we're doing that, we're going to smile to ourselves and just let go of that judgment. That may be our intention for the day, is to drop judgments of the first person that we see. And as we get more evolved into the practice, we can have lots of different intentions for the day, to be grateful as we're walking down the hall at work, or to be accepting when we're thinking of negative thoughts, etc. But we'll start just with one intention. So that's the gain meditation. We open our eyes slowly, and we're ready really to go out in the world, have coffee, breakfast, whatever we do, get down to work or play, whichever happens to be appropriate for that day. But starting out with a brief gain meditation really is so vital and so important.
So you mentioned earlier that I just wanted to pick up on that there are other ways or times to meditate, and you mentioned folks who ride their bike or run and things like that. That seems like a little bit of a different process that you would go through in order to get yourself into that state. How do you look at that?
Well, I think, the more one practices, for example, this gain meditation, the more facile one becomes. So, for example, we're gonna focus on our breathing, and then we're gonna begin to do the contemplative portion of the meditation, starting with gratitude. And the more we get kind of familiar with this, the more we associate the focus on the breath with the elements of gain, the easier it is just to sort of drop into the practice. Even when we're walking down the hall or down the street, we're riding a bicycle, we're sitting in a car, we bring our focus back to the breath, and we can just sort of drop into the gain practice. We can just begin to, again, contemplate one or more of these elements. So we can do that when we're actually out and about, or we can, just take a brief couple of minute break during the day, wherever we are.
Well, so let me ask you, maybe somebody who's brand new to meditation, and as for me, I have only a couple of times really attempted it, so I wanted to find out, and you talked a little bit about this, but I think it's a good reminder, is what should a beginner expect? Because I think what happens is somebody new to meditation has great expectations, or at least expectations beyond what really happens at that moment. So maybe what kind of expectations should they try to set for themselves, or at least not to get disappointed by not getting what they thought they might out of it?
Well, I think the easiest way to be to not be disappointed is not to have any expectations. There's no such thing as failure. Okay. If we sit down and we get in touch with our breath, and we're we're so distracted we can't even do a contemplation of the elements of gain, so be it. We sit for a few minutes and we try again the next morning. So it's a matter of having very low expectations and getting better at this kind of mindfulness practice in very small steps. So there's no such thing as failure. I would encourage everybody to stick with it, make it part of your daily routine. Don't have expectations, but I think, if we do it on a regular basis, every day, every morning, we cannot help but succeed.
Yeah.
So I thought, Andy, if you would like, if we have 3 minutes or so, we can actually, go through the gain meditation itself. We can
I'd
actually
love to,
do a meditation together. We'll create a nice field with your audience, and we can walk through that together.
Let's do it.
All right. So I'm going to close my eyes, and obviously I can't determine whether your audience members are closing their eyes as well. So I'll just encourage them to do that, and no cheating. Okay. So we'll start. So I would just encourage everybody
my eyes here.
Good. Okay. I'm closing mine as well. So just make yourself comfortable. Hopefully you're sitting in a nice, comfortable chair. Maybe plant your feet on the ground. Get in touch with the sensation of the bottoms of your feet in contact with the floor, which is in contact with the building, the foundation, the earth, all the way down to the center of the earth. And just sit comfortably. We're going to drop any expectations and just begin to focus on our breath. So we're going to breathe in slowly through our nose to a count of 3. Pause for a count of 2, and release the breath effortlessly to a count of 4. In to a count of 3. Pause for a count of 2. Exhale through our nose or mouth to a count of 4. We'll just repeat this for a few cycles, slowing it down. And feel that our heart rate is getting slower also as we begin to let go of any tension in the muscles in our face, our neck, our chest, abdomen, pelvis, our legs, our feet. And we're just going to slowly breathe in. We can notice a subtle sweetness to the air as we breathe. Into a count of 3 and pausing to a count of 2. Relaxing, letting go of the breath to a count of 4. And we notice that for which we're grateful. We notice our appreciation of the state of our health, not perfect, but we're here today. We can be thankful for this day, to be alive and experiencing the world and beyond. So grateful for the loved ones in our lives. Grateful for a safe place to live and have access to food and things we enjoy. We're so grateful for this time. And we just slowly breathe in the gratitude. And we notice that there's pain and suffering in the world. We notice perhaps the loss of a loved one. Can be very personal pain, can be the shared experience of the global pain during the pandemic. So many people out of work, people who have been ill. And this is life. This is life of joy, but also pain and suffering. And we actually can visualize as we breathe slowly and deeply, expanding our chest. We breathe in and feel our chest opening, and feel our heart opening to the pain and suffering that we experience. We're going to bring that pain and suffering, the sadness, closer and closer and closer until it merges with our open heart. So there's no separation between the pain and ourselves. And we ask ourselves, can I live with this pain forever? And the answer is yes, we can. And we go to the breath, slowly breathing in through our nose pausing, letting the breath go. And we move to our intention. The beauty of rewiring our minds, the beauty of this plasticity and our ability to change our thought process for the more positive, our ability to savor what we have and appreciate what we have rather than focusing on what we don't have. This ability of the human mind to actually change the way it functions for the better. If we set our intention, if we're purposeful about our awareness. And we're grateful for this ability to be intentional and to guide our thought processes and our experience. And we notice our breath filling our chest, expanding, filling our bodies, and letting it go. And we consider our ability to drop judgments. We have the presence of mind to be able to, as we begin to put a label of good or bad on another person or even ourselves, we have the ability to let go of this label. And things don't have to be good or bad. They just are as they are, exactly as they are. We didn't make them that way. We're not going to change them. And we just look at the world around us without judgment. We see it exactly as it is. And we return to our breath, breathing in slowly, pausing, and exhaling. Noticing our gratitude, our ability to open our heart to pain and suffering, our ability to guide our thoughts with intention, and our ability to let go of judgments and see the world exactly as it is. And we breathe in slowly, pause, and let the breath go. And we are going to open our eyes very slowly and look at the world around us and appreciate the lack of separation between ourselves and our world. And that's it.
Yeah, that I feel so good, refreshed, and I think it's nice to do it with somebody like you, or at least or with a friend or anybody, I suppose. But it kind of gives you permission to let yourself, take that moment of time to meditate and focus on your head and your brain and yourself.
And just bring ourselves to the present moment and remind ourselves of these basic, really central guiding principles of gratitude, acceptance, intention, and non-judgment. And, once we sit and do this each morning, Andy, we develop a resource related to our breath that we can go to anytime, no matter where we are. There's an expression, wherever you go, there you are. And it's true. We always have our breath. We always have that center, which is based in our breath. And so we can practice these principles for 5 seconds or 30 seconds anytime we want. We can go to our breath and remind ourselves of our gratitude, how fortunate we are. How fortunate we are to live where we do, as opposed to in some third world country where we had no access to resources and our lives were much less comfortable. We can just go to acceptance of pain and suffering, which is inexorably part of our life. We can go to our intention and to our non-judgment and drop our judgments. And all of these things make us feel good. They're little hits of dopamine that we can get throughout the day. And especially when we feel that we're getting tense or short-tempered or just feeling afraid or anxious, this is our center. This is something we can go back to anytime we'd like. And, the more we practice, just like training for a marathon. You know, the more we train, the more this becomes part of our daily habit, the more proficient we are, and the more beneficial the practice seems to be.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, I haven't done much meditation, but I ride my bike all the time and on a daily basis, for exercise, and I like doing it. But it's funny how sometimes I suddenly realize that I've been meditating about something because I suddenly come out and have a different outlook on things. So, I think that practice can spill over into other things you do in life that maybe you're not even aware of it happening until it does.
Absolutely. I mean, you're on your bicycle, you're breathing deeply anyway. Focus your attention on your breath. Focus your attention on the miracle of your breath. How this expansion of your chest and your lungs and then just a simple recoil and release of the breath, it happens automatically. We don't even have to think about it. Think of what a miracle that is.
Yeah.
And think about how grateful we are for the rest of our body's physiology and how amazingly well things work in general. It's miraculous. So, we can go to this center anytime we want, when we're on our bicycle or walking, or, if we wake up in the middle of the night and we're falling back asleep, we can just focus on our breath and our gratitude, etc. It's always there. It's always accessible.
Well, great. That's fascinating. I really enjoyed that. Well, let's see. Maybe we can talk about next week. There were a few questions that came in, but I thought maybe we could pick those up next week. And not sure what the focus is, or maybe you're not ready with a plan for next week. But I just thought if there is anything, we can talk about it for a moment now.
Sure. Well, the last 3 chapters in the book are on sleep, exercise, and nutrition. So we can talk about sleep, for example. We can just do a Q&A session.
Okay. That's
whatever fits, Andy. I'm open to all suggestions.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll do that, and then again, for people who want to know more about. And I know you have the website and the book and so forth, if you want to just talk about that.
Sure. Well, my website is greghammermd.com, GREGHAMMERMD.com. There's lots of links to media there, lots of interviews, including with you, Andy. There's a lot of interesting material online, and there's also a link to Amazon where the book can be purchased. And I think, I'm grateful to you for allowing me to be with you and guiding people to the website. And it's just been a very, very positive, wonderful, enjoyable experience these past weeks.
Yeah, it's a great lesson. Well, Greg, thanks so much. And we'll be back in touch soon.
I'll look forward to it, Andy. Thank you so much.
And thank everybody for watching. Greg will be back here same day, same time next week. There are a few schedule changes now here and there, but I think that holds true. Dr. Gregory Hammer, author of Gain Without Pain, the Happiness Handbook for Healthcare Professionals. You can find out more on Facebook and YouTube on Bloomer Boomer. And if you like this, please, of course, like us on Facebook and follow us. And in the meantime, get to know bloomerboomer.com, your web platform to springboard you to a meaningful life after 55. See you next time.
Bye, Andy.
Bye-bye.